This is not a statue. It's a void. The exact shape of a human being who died here, preserved in the ash for almost 2,000 years, then filled with plaster so we could see them again. We know how these people died. What's remarkable and unsettling is that we can now reconstruct their last day almost hour by hour. Because Pompeii wasn't destroyed in an instant, the people of this city had something close to 18 hours between the first sign of trouble and the moment that killed most of them. 18 hours. Enough time to escape. Many did. And many, for reasons we can still understand, chose to stay. This is the story of one ordinary Roman day that became the most famous natural disaster in history, minute by minute, as the people living it would have experienced it. First, set the scene. Pompeii was a prosperous town of perhaps 10 to 20,000 people on the Bay of Naples, a place of bakeries, bathhouses, brothels, election graffiti, and fine villas. A completely normal Roman town. Here's the detail that makes it real. We have the bread. Loaves were found still in the ovens, baked solid by the heat. Pots of food sat on tables. This was a town interrupted mid-meal, and looming over all of it, Vesuvius. But, and this is crucial, the Romans did not know it was a volcano. It hadn't erupted in living memory. Its slopes were vineyards. To the people of Pompeii, that mountain was just scenery. There was no word of warning in their heads because the very concept didn't exist for them. There had been signs looking back. Tremors, springs drying up. But this was earthquake country. The city was still rebuilding from a major quake years before. A few more shakes meant nothing. So on the morning of the eruption, the people of Pompeii woke up and went about an ordinary day. We can tell this story with such precision because of one extraordinary source. A 17-year-old named Pliny the Younger watched the whole thing from across the bay and wrote it down years later in 2 letters, the only detailed eyewitness account of a major eruption to survive from the ancient world. Pliny describes a cloud rising from the mountain, shaped, he says, like an umbrella pine, a tall trunk of smoke spreading into branches at the top. That's the eruption beginning. Modern volcanologists named this kind of violent, column-forming eruption after him, a Plinian eruption. In Pompeii, just a few miles from the vent, the sky darkened, and then it began to rain stone. This was the first killer, a relentless fall of pumice and ash. Light, porous volcanic rock piled up, fast. Roofs began to groan under the weight. This is the phase where your choice was made. Pumice fall is survivable if you leave, so some Pompeians fled south, away from the mountain, while the roads were still passable. But many stayed. Put yourself in their position. It's not yet clearly lethal, it's stone pebbles. Leaving means abandoning your home, your business, everything you own, to walk into a dark countryside under a rain of rock. People sheltered indoors, hoping it would pass. They were making a reasonable bet with the only information they had. It was the wrong one. The pumice kept falling for hours, eventually burying the city under meters of rock. Roofs collapsed under the load, killing people sheltering beneath them. The air was choking. It was pitch black. Pliny, across the bay, describes a darkness not like a moonless night, but like a sealed room with the lamp put out. And then, near dawn, came the thing that turned a catastrophe into total annihilation. The eruption column collapsed. Instead of shooting up, the superheated mix of gas, ash, and rock came roaring down the mountain, a pyroclastic surge, a ground-hugging avalanche of gas hot enough to kill instantly, moving faster than anyone could run. The first surges hit nearby Herculaneum and killed everyone sheltering there in seconds. Then they reached Pompeii. For the people still alive in the city, there was no time and nowhere to go. The heat killed most of them where they stood or crouched. That is what the plaster casts capture. Not people slowly buried. People caught in the instant the surge arrived, frozen in their final postures, shielding a child, covering a face, reaching for someone. Here's what I find most haunting about Pompeii. Not just that it happened, but how completely it was recovered. This is arguably the best documented day in all of ancient history. Pliny the Younger wrote his account to the historian Tacitus. He also recorded the death of his uncle, Pliny the Elder, a famous naturalist and fleet commander who sailed toward the eruption, partly to study it and partly to rescue people, and died on the shore. As bodies decayed, they left human-shaped cavities in the hardened ash. In the 1860s, an archaeologist named Giuseppe Fiorelli realized you could pour plaster into those voids and recover the exact form of the person, even their clothing folds, even their expressions. We're not looking at skeletons, we're looking at the negative space where a living person was in their last second. And the detective work continues. For centuries, we trusted the august date from a copy of Pliny's letter. But excavators kept finding autumn evidence, pomegranates and other fall fruits, heating braziers in use, heavier clothing. Then, recently, a worker's charcoal scrawl was uncovered dated to mid-October. The story is still being corrected, almost 2,000 years later. It's easy to treat Pompeii as a spectacle, but sit with the choice at the center of it. These people had hours. The reason so many died isn't that they were trapped from the start. It's that the danger arrived gradually, disguised as something survivable, and leaving felt like the bigger risk, right up until it wasn't. That's a profoundly human failure, and not an ancient one. We're not good at acting on a slow-building threat that hasn't hurt us yet, especially when acting means giving up everything we know. The people of Pompeii weren't foolish. They were us, with less information, making the bet most of us would make. And here's the quiet catastrophe waiting in this story. Vesuvius is not extinct. It still looms over the Bay of Naples, where today, around 3 million people live within reach of it. It will erupt again. The only real question is whether next time, 18 hours will be enough. If you want another disaster the textbooks rush past, next time, the women who were told the glowing paint was safe to taste, the radium girls. I'll see you there.